Hi and good morning, it's Jim from Mavestar Observatory. Guys, we've got an update. We're going to call it the Mavestar update. It's a little bit of a change of the normal procedure we do. We're just going to go through all the anomalies that are taking place on the Earth. But before we do, special thanks to Timothy, Susan from San Francisco, River, Joe, Francis, Jason, Catherine and Sandy for over the last week have made contributions to our observatory. Seems like things are starting to pick up. The year is starting to begin for us here at the observatory. You know, we've brought in a little bit of money. That means we can buy some equipment and get some things manufactured and get them out into the field so we can collect more data. That's what makes us different from any other YouTube channel. We're an observatory. We'd use the scientific method. We collect the data from the equipment, process it and relate back to you guys. Okay, so we're looking at the pins of the magnetic North Pole migrating over the Northern Hemisphere for the last 100 years or so, and as you can see from the last pin, we're very close to a 40-degree mark. And a lot of people have asked, why is it so important? Why do you talk about the 40 degrees, Gene, so much? Well, you can do this yourselves, guys. Just get a little magnet and stick it to a chopstick, yeah, and then put it in the company of a ordinary compass and just turn it, rotate the chopstick with the magnet on the bottom so that the poles are flicking round, and watch what happens when it migrates the needle on the compass 40 degrees. I'll explain what you're going to see. You're going to see a slow movement as it goes towards the 40 degrees, and that is because the needle is in the strong field lines, and when you surpass the 40 degrees you're going to see the needle on the compass wobble a bit, and then when it goes past the 40 degrees you're going to see a rapid movement of reversal. That's what we anticipate will happen with our Earth's magnetic field. If you look at our Earth's magnetic field in the simplistic form, you'll see it as a bar magnet, a North Pole, a South Pole, and there is no logical reason why it shouldn't repeat the experiments that we've done, which show it leaving the weak field lines, leaving the strong field lines into the weak field lines, where it makes that rapid movement. Now we've calculated where the 40-degree mark is over the Northern Hemisphere. As you can see, it puts us about just 2 years or more away from that 40-degree mark, and over the last 30 years of it approaching that 40-degree mark, we're starting to see some interesting things with the Earth's climate change, and those changes, as we know, are affecting not just the jet streams as a result of more cosmic rays in the upper atmosphere colliding with the molecules in our atmosphere, creating showers of muons, which we now are putting out into the field more. And as a result of that, what happens is it leads to a seeding effect. It allows water vapor molecules to build up on these seeded platforms and condense, and when they condense into water droplets, we have sluggish jet streams. They start to expand, and that's what we've been seeing over the last 25-30 years, and that explains why we are now seeing low-hanging jet streams, through the peaks and the troughs of the jet streams coming further down towards the equatorial region of our planet. And that is why the weathers are becoming unpredictable and the seasons are becoming unpredictable. That's why it's affecting a lot of arable cropping zones around our planet, which we rely on as human beings for sources of food. So we're not there yet. We're not at the 40-degree mark. We're certainly not at the equilibrium point, which is the center of the point where things continuously get worse before they start to get better. We're probably years and years away from that. We've got probably another 20-30 years before we start to see things getting better. Now, there are other things that we've discussed over the last few days with regards to how close we are to entering another glacial period on our planet, and the poles reversing on our planet could expedite that, could increase the speed and rate in which that happens. If you look at the data of interglacial and glacial periods, what you'll see is that we are very close to a glacial period right now. It is pointing in the direction of another glacial period, and we are very close to that line where we surpass an interglacial period into a glacial period. If that happens, guys, and I have to express this, and when you come across some information, you can't just let it drop at, for no reason. You can't just put it down. You've discovered something big, you've seen how people react to it. You can't just put it down. You've got to keep telling people how important this is. What am I talking about? I'm talking about what happened in Texas with that 30-year cold snap of Arctic temperature, which took out the grid over there. Excuse me. As you can see, I've still got that, cold, which is really annoying. But yeah, it took out the grid and left 100 million people, without electricity. Can you imagine in this day and age, 2021, having that happen? And, in some cases, people went without electricity for more than a week. This is, a third world country, high-tech country, a big city, heavily reliant on the grid. It failed and they couldn't put it back together within 24 hours. The reason why I mention this, and we can't just leave that information alone, because first of all, it showed us how people were affected and why they were affected. And the reason why we can't just put that down and leave it is because glacial periods last for tens of thousands of years. Think about that. How will the Northern Hemisphere cope if it goes back into a glacial period? And all the data that we've got shows that we are heading that direction. How do we cope? A grid down situation that is prolonged. Well, we saw the films, what happens. After a couple of weeks, people start to lose, their patience. Their families probably haven't ate for a week. They've had no electricity, no warmth, no readily accessible water, etc., etc. It puts a massive amount of pressure on people. And what are we? We're human beings, and what do we do first and foremost? Strive to survive. So then we become competitive against each other in those situations. That's where it all starts to go horribly wrong, and we've seen it in our history. We're not just talking about a couple of weeks ago what happened in Texas. I'm talking about what happened during the blockade in Russia, when the Germans blockaded food and supplies going into Russia. People turned to cannibalism, and people were fighting over food rations to the tune where 100,000 people were dying each month. There you are. That's how human beings can go, put in certain circumstances. When the pressure's on, the pressure is on, and you will do whatever you have to feed your family, and mothers will do whatever they have to put food in children's mouths. Just look at the recent conflicts. Look at what people do in order to just survive. It will give you an idea of what to expect if we suddenly go into a glacial period. Now, I believe the magnetic pole can accelerate this and put us in that situation very quickly. If it does, well, this world won't look the same, and people's behaviour won't be the same, and continuity of government will struggle to maintain control across the world. People are trapped in the countries. They can't migrate like we used to be able to. When places become unsustainable, we migrated to somewhere where we could, feed ourselves. And this is one of the reasons why cities failed, because the cities failed to get food into them, in the ancient culture civilizations. And then people thought, stuff this, it's easier if I become a hunter-gatherer. I can feed myself more efficiently than I can, having to exchange my labour for work and whatever currency I've got or entitlements I've got to food, at least, I can eat what I want and not just be given, mere scratchings to survive on. So they left the cities. And I've said this all along. Cities are okay so long as the logistics and everything is running, but when they turn stagnant, when the electricity stops, that means everything shuts down. That's how much reliant we are on, our cities and the infrastructure and the logistics that come and bring everything we need to sustain ourselves in them. I mean, most of us don't have gardens who live in cities. And that means we haven't got the luxury of being able to put a bit of extra, fruit and veg in a garden and grow it ourselves. We are dependent on having to pay rent or mortgages, put fuel in the car, pay insurances, this, that and the other. And then on top of that, we need food in the shops in order for us to bring it back home to our little artificial environment in the city. But when it all stops, the cities become stagnant. The power doesn't go to the city. The sanitation doesn't work. All those things and modern comforts that we're accustomed to using don't exist. No internet. This is some of the things that people experienced only a couple of weeks in Texas. And, surprisingly, it affected masses amounts of people. We have to learn from this, especially when we are faced with prolonged periods of time in the near future of experiencing the same scenario, only a lasting scenario. Now, we don't really know how long it takes for an ice age to come about. There are indications that they can be very rapid. But what I will say this is, once the northern hemisphere is covered in a blanket of white snow, then it becomes a reflective surface and it becomes very hard to heat the surface of the earth, and therefore the temperatures, decline as a result of that. So, just putting that out there. So a quick look at a few anomalies that are taking place in our solar system, starting with the main thing, our solar constant or sun and disk. As you can see, there is one active region, but look where the sunspot is. It's around 30 degrees south. If we're just coming out of solar cycle 24 into solar cycle 25, why is that sunspot at 30 degrees? Because that is where the sunspots usually are during solar maximum. You can check these facts that I give you guys. I've spent years, researching this stuff, and I'm asking the question, why is that the case? Are we in solar max already? Is that why that sunspot's at 30 degrees south and not equatorial where it should be? Check NASA's own website where the sunspots are supposed to be during this solar cycle at this point in time. Something's very wrong, and not just with our planet, but with other planets in our solar system, guys, and indeed our own star. Taking a quick look at the active erupting volcanoes. These are the volcanoes only in eruption. They're the only ones I'm interested in, and they should be the only ones that you're interested in. Don't look at it currently showing signs of eruption, because we'd have hundreds on this map. Let's look at the ones that are actively in eruption and concentrate on that number, because I think that is the base for us to understanding what's going on. We know that they're in eruption, and therefore, there's our base. There's 27 currently, in eruption at the moment on our planet. That's about average. If you check the Earth Health at a glance on the website, you'll see that the number fluctuates between 2 and 3. They have come up a little bit over the last year, I've got to say that, because at one point we were seeing 1/3 reduction in active erupting volcanoes at one point in time. We're starting to see the numbers slowly increase. But, I've got to ask the question, as much as I know about science and, this Earth and all that, why are the majority of our erupting volcanoes equatorial region based? Apart from, yes, we've got one that's always active, in Antarctica, which we can't see on this at the moment because of the screenshot. But why are they mostly erupting around the equatorial region? Maybe there's a reason for that. Just a quick overview of what's happening with regards to earthquakes around our world. As you can see, a little bit like the volcanic eruptions, mainly concentrated around the equatorial region. Is that an equatorial pressure due to the core of our Earth's centrifugal force putting pressure around that region, just like where the super bulge of water is around the equatorial region? Could be, don't quite know, not 100% sure. Just taking a quick look finally with regards to what's happening with the jet streams. As you can see, super jet streams forming across the subtropical regions. A couple of polar jet streams, but nothing like what there should be. Just a quick look around the world at what they're doing. So we've got this subtropical jet stream which is moving up into the polar regions. We know what's going to happen there. Subtropical meets polar, drops a lot of precipitation, could be in the form of snow depending on the latitude of where that that water vapor condenses, and just malfunction and abnormality over the southern hemisphere. As you can see, no distinctive pattern between the subtropical polar jet stream, just the same as the story above the equatorial region over the northern hemisphere. To look at this, I think it's really sad that our Earth is going through these changes that we're witnessing. There is a certain element that makes me feel excited as a scientist, to see such dramatic changes. But it's always at the back of your mind of the devastation that these jet streams are causing as a result of what we see. And we've got more, like I say, to come. We've not reached the equilibrium point. Most of this is a result of the Earth going through the magnetic reversal. Something that was being talked about is the last Champ excursion that took place around about 42,000 years ago on our planet. A lot of articles circulating on the internet at the moment with regards to that. The thing is, I don't draw the same conclusions as them, for a lot of reasons. There's a lot of problems with carbon dating. I've seen some big errors where they've had animals, they've took carbon dating from the feet of the animal, that's give 1 year, and they've took carbon dating from the head of the animal, that's give a completely different year. And not just a small error, but large errors in the dates. We're talking sometimes thousands of years difference. So I don't hold a lot of confidence in carbon dating. And there's a lot of things that have been said, that the last Champ excursion was responsible for the end of the Neanderthals and the emergence of the human beings, the Homo sapiens on our planet. This was the changeover date, and I think that they're just trying to patch things together to make it look right when all the facts aren't there. For instance, they're saying there was an explosion of cave painting art, artifacts on walls at this point in time. And what does that say? That the Homo sapiens were more intelligent, they started to create art forms and things like that? I really don't know. And they're saying that there was a lot of catastrophes surrounding that point in time. But there has been other excursions, and where are the catastrophes linked to those as well? If you're going to make statements about magnetic pole migration interfering with other things on the planet, then why every time isn't it the same? And when we look at the historical data with regards to glacial periods, there's no real cycle there. It's not like 100,000 years passed, we had a glacial period, another 100,000 years go by, and we get another glacial period. It's not clear cut like that, and neither was the magnetic reversals. And this one certainly is different from any other, because on average they used to go through a reversal, the poles on our planet, every 300 to 350,000 years. Not perfect cycles, but you know, the time frame was around about that. And then this time 500,000 years delay. Very strange. Okay guys, I'm going to leave it here. Have a great day. There's a link down there if you want to help support what we do. We go out there, put the equipment out in the field and record the data, process it, give it back to you guys so that we can keep ahead on, you know, the anomalies that we look at on this channel. Hope you want to support that, and if you do, the links are down there. So, you know, you have a great day, look after your loved ones, and I'll say what I usually do. Take care, as always. Bye for now.